E aí, pessoal, estão gostando do conteúdo da TD Web Conference? A gente está gostando demais da interação com vocês no chat e começamos a pensar aqui, né, viajar. E se a gente tivesse um happy hour, uma festa para integrar toda essa turma e jogar papo fora ali no chat? Será que esse network vai funcionar? Bom, vamos testar, por isso mesmo você está convidado. Nessa sexta-feira, a partir das 18h45, tem happy hour no TD Web Conference, é isso mesmo. Convidei o Robinho, DJ de Belo Horizonte, amigo meu de longa data. Ele vai fazer um set especial para nós. Então, já pede no iFood aí sua bebida, pode ser cerveja, champanhe, vodka. Ou se você não bebe, cata o suquinho, mas vem conosco bater papo. É a partir das 6h45 da tarde, 18h45, sexta-feira. O time do TD vai estar todo por lá pra gente se conhecer, trocar ideia, dar risada. Então, te vejo no chat. Até! E aí, pessoal, bem-vindos a mais um conteúdo da TD Web Conference. Eu sou Igor Lopes, curador do evento. Estou aqui com vocês nessas mais de 80 conversas que a gente está tendo com os executivos que a gente chamou para o evento. E a conversa de agora é super especial, que eu vou falar com o Shannon Poulin. Ele é VP corporativo, gerente geral dos mercados globais e parceiros da Intel. Na verdade, ele é o head por trás dos country managers da Intel. Então a gente vai falar um pouquinho sobre o mundo em 2030, né? Como a gente está vendo a evolução do mundo aí nos próximos 10 anos. E também como a Intel está se preparando ou preparando o mundo para esse novo momento, né, já que é uma grande provedora de soluções. So first of all, thanks for talking to us, Shannon.
Bom dia, hello, good to talk to you.
Good, good. Well, Intel is a big tech company, and Intel has been looking at the future since its beginning, right, with Moore's Law and these kind of things. So how is Intel looking right now to the future we're building from now on, right? And when you think of 2030, how does Intel see and imagine this new world?
One of the first things you do is you listen to your customers. We have the great advantage of having some technology that's used in almost every piece of infrastructure that goes out today. So whether it's a compute infrastructure that everybody is familiar with around PCs or maybe a server, or increasingly it's 5G and Intel inside of 5G telco infrastructure, or maybe storage, or maybe AI, some of the different things, we have technology in a lot of those devices. So when we think about where we want to go in the future, we have a lot of conversations with end user customers and say, what are the things that you need or the challenges that you're having? And how might Intel help solve those challenges? So we get direct feedback from them. So that's incredibly beneficial for us. We then look at things like AI and IoT and 5G, and we really look to push the envelope with the technology to make sure that we can do some things tomorrow that you just can't do today.
How to develop this innovation culture inside the company? I mean, look at the client, look at the other side of the table is the best thing to do. But how to develop this culture inside, make people think like that?
Yeah, what you do is you really challenge them to break through barriers and not take no for an answer. Because if all you're trying to do is incremental innovation, you'll never take a big leap forward. So for us at Intel, we really reward an innovative culture. We really reward a lot of our engineering talent who are developing new patents and are doing new things every day. And we really try and put ideas on the table and get people to kind of swarm them and look at those different ideas and say, how could we make something better? We really work on the idea itself and the engineering that goes around that idea, and less so around the person who brought the idea or maybe the way we did things in the past, right? You really, if you want to transform, you really need to think differently.
We have to look at the moment we're living right now, right? Loads of things happening, people inside in quarantine, and you are responsible to talk with the heads, the local heads, you know, the general managers of Intel all over the world. I think people in Asia, they're living already a new moment, and then we see Europe still in quarantine, coping with the people are coming back to the new life, also in Latam in a few weeks. How do you see people, especially in Asia, coping with this new moment? You know, especially small businesses, maybe they're starting to understand the power of technology. How are you seeing new technologies and new solutions coming to the market, right?
Yeah, I would say, you know, at this moment that we are in our history, it's certainly a challenge for all of humanity, right? And one of the things that we see is the power of some of the connectivity and technology that we have in helping to fight the situation that we're in, right? Whether that's identifying some of the challenges up front in terms of some of the innovations that are required on the medical side, whether it's treating some of the situation that we have and maybe using technology and doing things from a distance where you can't do things face to face, or maybe also whether it's in the future, right? And in trying to create a different future than we previously believed that we were on a path of as humanity. A couple of those examples, right? We're seeing AI, artificial intelligence technology, get applied in different ways to try and come up with both treatment and cure, right, on the virus situation. We also are doing this thing over video, right? Where previously we would have thought, okay, face to face in a studio, right? And the things that we're doing now relative to education, relative to medicine and telemedicine, relative to the way that we work are accelerating where society probably would have gone 5, 10, or 15 years from now. But it's really accelerating all different kinds of the adoption of technology. At Intel, we're trying to invent the future and enable people to really come up with creative solutions. So some of the things that we've done, we've put a $50 million initiative together to really accelerate where technology could be applied, right, to help fight this disease. And it might be in any one of those areas in terms of, you know, detection and treatment or finding a cure, right? And in all those different ways, technology is applicable. There's not a lot of people right now that are saying, boy, I don't need any connectivity at home. They need a PC, they need a network, they need a data center to connect it to, right? So we're seeing, you know, an adoption, an acceleration of adoption. We're also seeing things like the regulatory environment changing. Maybe I couldn't get insurance reimbursement for a video conference with my doctor before. Now you can, right? And so now doctors are able to treat patients remotely. Obviously, that's much better from a spread of virus or spread of germs perspective. It always has been, but there's been limitations to that adoption. Boom, that accelerates. And now you have no more, you know, barrier to that adoption. At Intel, we're trying to invent the future, and we're trying to enable that to happen faster.
But do you see a difference in the way people look at these differences and these new technologies in different regions in the world? I mean, do you think people in Asia maybe are more open to the new things than people in Latam, for example?
Yeah, I think the crisis sometimes creates a way that people think about technology differently. There might have been some policy privacy issues. There's a lot of conversation about how do I track the virus on a mobile device, and do I make a map of people? And oh boy, you know, Europe has certain ways that they look at privacy, but they're saying, you know, maybe in this situation, it might be better if I relax my policy a little bit. In some places, the US or Latin America or Asia, we might have looked at policies differently. And maybe we're saying, maybe I need to look at that, in a new light, given where we are in trying to treat this virus. You see Taiwan, you see Singapore, you see China, you see some places coming back online and getting back to business now, but they're doing business differently. It's not like they're thinking about, oh, throw away social distancing and I don't care about. Everybody's thinking a little bit differently about how they get back to business and how they use technology to help them.
Yeah, I was telling before you were online. I was telling people that I'm doing like a series of lives now these days, this week, focused on the small companies, right? And then people at small companies, they just need to sell. They just want to sell, but they want to sell the same way they used to do on the old days, right? What would you say to them? How do they have to think of the new world, the new moment, to go back to sales, to go back to their new normal?
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of companies that are having to get online in order to sustain their business and transform, right? And we all know that getting online with a billing system or a customer management system is more efficient than paper. But there was never really a moment where it was forced. So we've had a century of not having to be online for some companies and no real moment where they were forced. Well, now, unfortunately, they're in a forced situation. And so what we at Intel are trying to do is help enable them, small, medium, and even in some cases, large businesses, to become more digital and to transform. And then you're seeing it in classic situations of like retail, right? A brick and mortar retail right now is struggling a little bit to get people into the stores, especially in places where there's quarantine for non-essential goods. So we're trying to work with them to say, okay, this is a much better way to do transactional commerce where people can search online. Maybe they can come to your store and click and collect the device, whatever it is they need to buy. And so really transforming their business model. Not that the future hasn't been visible. Everybody could see 3P and online and digital commerce, but not everybody was there. So the future was there, it just wasn't evenly distributed, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, also you said about education. I know Intel and education, you have a close relationship since old times. And we're talking also this morning about education, especially for children, how difficult it is to make people or children interact online, and even adults. Some of the adults can't cope with online content, right? How do you see technology helping people or helping to promote education from now on? I mean, virtual reality, augmented reality, what kind of technologies do you think are going to be used more and more into education to make people connect online?
Yeah, first, I think that you're seeing education get transformed out of necessity. You have technology to be able to do video, to be able to download documents, to be able to interact with an instructor. There's always been one way video, right, where you've just downloaded a podcast and educated yourself. But now there's more interaction required. All of that needs technology.
And also, I think needs technology, but also needs to teach the teachers, the new normal, the new way of using technology as well. Because I don't think they're used to that.
Yeah, at Intel, we believe it's multifaceted. We've had, decades of investment in education. You're exactly right. Sometimes the students know more than the teachers about the use of technology. So you have to both educate the teachers in technology, and you also have to make the curriculum changes necessary, because you don't teach exactly the same way face-to-face as you do in a virtual environment. So those changes are going on right now. Lastly, when you bring on that many millions of endpoint devices, we at Intel believe that 5G and increased bandwidth and increased technology is going to help here, because you want the experience to be close to seamless from a video perspective and a connectivity perspective. And you can't get there over the existing networks and the existing technology.
And I think it's also a new way of looking at the market as well. I used to study Spanish, for example, with a teacher in Bucaramanga, which is somewhere in Colombia, and the money in Colombia it's not valuable. So she used to I used to pay 12 reais for her. And it was really cool for her because her money for her is okay. And it's even more for me because 12 reais for me is very cheap comparing to what people ask here, you know. And then when we think at this moment as well, especially in Brazil right now with real is real comparing to dollar, you know. When you think of this, you see a new market as well. You can teach to people all over the world from like that, you know. It's a different way of coping with the market.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, I think that's the thing that technology brings is it breaks down barriers, right? From an Intel perspective, as we're thinking about the future, we definitely are thinking about a world that's interconnected. We think about data centers. We think about all the different ways that we might be able to enable government and commerce to happen in a digital fashion. We think about delivering healthcare, education. So we really are trying to transform all those different industries. Right now, you're seeing some of them that have been heavily digitally transformed. Think about finance, right? Online banking and stock exchanges, and those have been heavily digitally transformed. And then you think about others. Education is probably one where healthcare is in some ways one where the transformation hasn't quite happened yet. And that's where we're putting a lot of our focus.
What about smart cities and cities of the future? I know Intel has loads of studies related to that as well. Nowadays, we're more and more into home office, and then maybe the distance between where I live and where I work, it doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. How do you see the future of the cities, especially after this moment, right?
Yeah, I think we're in a situation where while we're in it, we think, oh, this might look like the future. I don't think we have a sustainable future right now where we have all the people that we have working from home. And then we have the massive amount of unemployment of service related jobs where you can't say that restaurants will never exist. That isn't a future, I think, that is real. So even though we're in the middle of the moment, I don't think this is what the future looks like. It may not look exactly like where we were, but it's probably going to look more similar to that than it is the situation we're in now. When we look at smart cities, we say, okay, there's an opportunity for acceleration here. We know that some of the things around social distancing, some of those practices might continue to exist. We know that some of the things around wanting to connect with your state or local government might, in a digital fashion, that might want to continue. Because we could talk about digital transformation, government, probably one of the laggards, right, relative to digital transformation in some ways. And yet, you can see the future if you go look at Singapore or some of the places around the world that we at Intel are able to go look at and say, okay, how do we take the technology that we're seeing there relative to smart parking or video surveillance or automation of the subway or public transportation or automation in the healthcare space? How do we take what we've seen in one location and help to advocate or bring it to another? And that's the future that we're helping to go invent.
Cool. You said it's artificial moment right now. We also have to think of the other side effect, which is the psychological side effect as well. That people are starting to get crazy at this moment. How is Intel coping with that when you look at the people that work at Intel?
Yeah, we have the luxury of having two different types of situations at Intel. One of them is a lot of our workers in manufacturing, every day they went to work in a bunny suit and a mask and a shield and a hood. That was
already the normal
everyday
yeah.
outfit. It was the normal. That's their normal. And then they go into a room that is the cleanest room in the world, a clean room of a wafer manufacturing facility where there's 3 parts per million of dust, per cubic, whatever. So the reality of it is we have 60 plus thousand of our employees that are in that manufacturing environment, and they're, looking at all kinds of protective equipment and saying, we got this. Then there are a bunch of knowledge workers, engineers, and people designing chips, and salespeople, and HR, and all the different functionalities that a normal business also has. We have, a lot of those employees as well, about 40,000 of those employees. So in that construct, we're working from home. And when you're executing something, existing projects, you can kind of do that work from home situation pretty well. I think the challenge will be, as this goes on, new projects and starting new adventures, within a business, that's going to be challenging, right? And so we're trying to figure out what we do with video internal to Intel. We do a lot of conversations. I was on with you, on with my German team right before I joined you. We had 150 plus people in Germany. We were doing a conversation with our sales leadership and just talking to our German people in a Q&A. How's it going? What is your mental health? And is there anything we can possibly do? We are going to provide like a day where maybe we don't do any email in Germany, and take a day off, in the future. And what are the things that we might be able to do to make sure that we're looking at the whole person? Because in a digital world, you don't want to wake up at home, you're in your office, because your office is your house. So we don't want to, the minute you get up and then the minute you go to sleep and it feels like you're working the whole day, you still need to take a break. You still need to go outside and get some fresh air. You still need to exercise. You need to eat right. So we're having a lot of those conversations with our employees now where we never did before, right?
Yeah,
so
I think people are forgetting about these things, right?
Very much. I mean, because I wake up, I'm at work. I go to bed, I'm at work. Mm-hmm. And so you got to make sure you stay on top of it.
Mm-hmm. There are 2 other futures that for Intel is already present. I'd like to talk to you. One of them is data. People in companies, they're understanding more and more that data, they have to look at data, they have to work with data. How is Intel helping other companies related to that? I mean, Intel is a data company since the beginning, is a chip company since the beginning. How are you helping companies from now on?
Yeah, one of the things we're helping them do is first off, figure out how they both collect or get input on that data. It used to be a lot of people generated data. Now it's a lot of machine generated data. So we're seeing that transition, if you will. And at Intel, we want to provide some devices or technology, whether that's a PC or an IoT device. We're working with Embrapa down there to think about agriculture. Well, we don't want people walking around going, how does that piece of corn look? And how does that soybean look? Right? We want sensors to be able to do things like test the ground for groundwater, right? And different things around the crop. So we're doing things around the collection of data. Then we're doing some things around the movement, right? It doesn't help if you have data that's locked in a silo, right? So you're going to want to move that data somewhere. That's going to mean a network of some kind. It used to be a wired network, Ethernet. Then it was 2G and 3G and 4G and soon 5G networks that'll move that data around very efficiently. Intel is inside the innovation of all of those different networks. Then it'll be, I want to do something with the data. I want to compute, that data and maybe use AI and get some result out of that data. So we're going to work with them on what's the algorithm you're going to use? What's the framework that you might use? How are you going to organize that data? And then lastly, they're going to want to store it somewhere. And so we'll have some conversation about, is this hot or warm or cold storage? What's the most cost-effective way that you can store data? What data do you not need so you can triage or throw away some data? So we're working at Intel across the spectrum of people using data, moving it around and computing with it. And we're really trying to allow them to innovate because we can't come up with every idea ourselves at Intel. The world comes up with amazing ideas, right? And so that's where we engage and we help to enable that future to happen.
And you co-create as well. And there's one last future that I'd like to talk about. People were trying to go to Mars, but now I think from now on, people are starting to look more into ourselves, our planet, right? And Intel has loads of experiences and things related to the environment. I know there are loads of things going on in the Arctic, in Africa. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, how technology can help people help the environment, you know, how the humanity can help the environment with technology.
Yeah, it's really fun for me because my wife is a molecular biologist. So she did cancer research and has done some work with virology. So it's kind of interesting what's happening now in terms of the intersection of biology and technology, right? Those two things are now very much coming together. And what we're doing is we're seeing faster sequencing of DNA, the ability to track the progress of some of these viruses and where they might go and how we might quarantine or the cure. So really you're seeing the intersection of biology and technology. So I think that's just incredibly important. I also have a daughter who's a marine biologist. So she's on the other side looking at the planet from a marine perspective. You mentioned the Arctic, and she's looking at the oceans, and you really have a lot of undiscovered aspects about the oceans and the way we might potentially find cures for some of the diseases that we have. And there are a lot of bioactive organisms in the ocean that you can then look to and say, is this early drug discovery, right? If I have a sponge and it emits a toxin of some kind as a defense mechanism, can I use that toxin, find out if it's anti-cancer, anti-tumor, synthesize that, and turn it into a drug and potentially treat some disease with it, breast cancer or some other type of cancer? That is ongoing today. And those types of technology integrations with biology are doing things like helping our planet. When you look at monitoring the environment, Intel is one of the few companies that publishes a full environmental report. How much water did we use? How much energy did we use last year, right? What renewable energy credits are we purchasing? How much solar do we have? How much wind, right? So we're talking about our footprint as a company, as a technology company. We believe that's incredibly important, not only for us, but you can see examples in what we're going through in opportunity for our planet. You see everybody's quarantine and the reduction in pollution. And we all see those articles, as they come out and read them. But I think we need to learn as humanity that we have options here to intersect with both what we want to do to progress technology as well as what we want to do to help our environment and really put those things together.
That's good. Well, we are saying about the world in 2030, but I think all we talked here until now, it's already the world we're living. It's right now, right? But now I'd like to talk about the real world in 2030. What are the products you think are going to find Intel inside in 2030? It's going to be a laptop, it's going to be a smartwatch, it's going to be a mobile. Where are we going to find the Intel inside in 2030?
I think you're seeing examples of the type of technology changes that you're going to see, 10, 20 years from now. Let me give you a couple examples. You are talking to a device more now. So when you think about it, I talk to my phone. I might even talk to a device in my house, and say, I want to buy this, put it on the shopping list. You eventually will talk to your car more. Every piece of that conversational transaction has some level of technology in it. It has voice recognition. It has voice recognition of Portuguese, of Mandarin, of English, of accents, of dialects. So you're seeing an increased use of technology there. We believe that conversational transaction and technology use will go up. Once you have that, you then have something that has to determine, okay, I hear what Igor has said, but what does he mean? So there has to be some level of AI that's going to be applied to that technology. Today, people are converting your voice to text, to speech, and figuring out some level of context around that. And I think that's very early days of using that level of AI. What I think you're going to see is AI applied to everything. It's going to be machine learning around predictive maintenance of some of the things that are going on in a factory, right? So that I can maintain devices before they break. It's going to be some level of AI to that Embrapa conversation we had, to when should I plant the crop? When should I harvest the crop? When should I water the crop to get the maximum yield, right? And so there's AI technology that could be applied to many different things. I personally, in 10 years, think we're also going to remove a lot of people from vehicles. Right now, the biggest problem with vehicles is people are driving them. And we are unpredictable. And we can get predictable, as we put more machines and algorithms and AI in charge of those devices. So I think you'll see more autonomously driven vehicles, 10 years from now. So I think some of the things that we know will happen, voice recognition, AI for speech, AI for other, capability, autonomously driven vehicles, those things you can already see right now, kind of where those things are coming from. And then the last one is video, right? We're really using video for lots of different cases today. This is conversation. We know how to use video for conversation. What about video for when somebody, steals something from a store? I could use video for that, right? And some type of surveillance, right? What about video for safety, right? I could use video for that. So we're seeing lots of different examples of where video is going to be transformative as we get the foundational technology like 5G that we're trying to enable at Intel. As we get those foundational technologies to free up the bandwidth to allow that technology to really shine.
That's great. Is there anything else you'd like to say that you thought of saying?
I mean, we're super excited about the future. Obviously, some of the things that we're seeing now around technology adoption at Intel are things that we've been working on for decades, right? And they're really just kind of coming to the forefront now. We're doing this conversation on video. It wasn't that long ago that humanity had a problem doing voice over IP, right? So if you think about it, in our lifetime, we've seen a huge change in technology. I'm talking to you from Portland, Oregon in the US on video. You're in Sao Paulo, Brazil on video. And it's a pretty seamless experience. And so we're, yes, and very economical, which is key to the scale, right? We also have to remember, even though this is the future for us and it's here now, this isn't there for everybody. We have to think about Southeast Asia and Africa and other parts of the world where technology really could help enable society in terms of better crops and better food yield, better safety and security, maybe better connection to government for programs. So I want to make sure that we think about technology as an enabler for society and societal good. And that really is one thing that gets us at Intel incredibly excited every day.
That was great. Bom, conversei aqui com o Shannon Poulin, ele é o VP Corporativo e Gerente Geral dos Mercados Globais e Parceiros da Intel. Shannon, thanks a lot for talking to us. It was great.
Obrigado. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, valeu.
Neste momento, sabemos o quanto é importante fazer a nossa parte. O coronavírus ameaça nossa saúde, empresas e empregos. E em meio a tantas dificuldades, é preciso solidariedade e união. Queremos preservar empregos, continuar a atender a população e manter investimentos. Porém, gostaríamos de fazer mais. Para isso, precisamos do apoio de todos, especialmente daqueles com poder para tomar decisões. CNC, federações, SESC, SENAC. Trabalho a favor do Brasil.